Hello, everyone. My name is David Cronenberg, and I am a program assistant at the Center for Arts Leadership. Today, we have Alex Kolyszko with us. He is a Polish American bass and a native of Minnesota who recently performed as Bartolo in Mozart's Le Nozze di Figaro within CCPA's opera program, as well as Le Baron de Parturu in Pauline Viardot's Cendrillon for Roosevelt University's Opera Fest. Opera is his passion, and his roles include he, Grimbold, in Frost Genius and Henry Purcell's King Arthur, Pooh in New Mikado, and the Bronze, as well as the Commissioner in Madame Butterfly. His musical theater credits include Courfeyrac in Les Miserables, Clifford Bradshaw in Cabaret, King Maximus in Roger and Hammerstein's Cinderella, and Daddy Warbucks in Annie. He has sung in the masterclasses of David Jones and Robert Sims, as well as the Collaborative Arts Institute of Chicago's Polish Art Song Masterclass. He studies under Mark Creighton through Roosevelt University Chicago College of Performing Arts, where he recently completed his master's in vocal performance in 2021. With his voice and career, he hopes to help underrepresented groups flourish in the operatic community and believes that young professionals can encourage inclusivity in opera. Welcome, Alex. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, David, for having me. I really appreciate you reaching out. And that was a great bio. I really like how you wrote it and presented it.
Well, thank you very much. First, we wanted to kind of talk to you about some of the house management things that you've done. That's been an interest in some of the students. So we were kind of wondering how you got interested in it, why you got interested in it, and just how have you been able to grow that from CCPA into your professional career?
Of course. Yeah, thank you. What a loaded question. And I do not mind talking about all those topics. So thank you. So house managing, yes, that is one of the biggest ways that I've made sure to stay involved in arts and theater and opera, since graduating. And the way I originally became involved in house managing is I moved to Chicago in 2019 to start my master's of music preparation and kind of move forward into Roosevelt. And I was looking for new positions, and Mark Creighton, my wonderful teacher, he presented me with this opportunity through Tim Stadler, one of the operational directors in the theater department. And the rest was kind of history. I mean, it's almost 3 years later, and I've been with RU Theater, house managing for them since then, with the O'Malley Theater as well as the Miller Theater. And it's just been powerful. It's so powerful to see young professionals and young artists and young adults just in their prime of learning, right? And I think that is such a powerful thing. Like I remember seeing a chorus line actually right before, I'd say November of 2019. And it was just a momentous experience. And I wouldn't have been able to experience it the way I did without that role in house management. And it's 3 years later, and I still find it incredibly enthralling. And through those experiences, I've been able to work with Chicago Opera Theater and the Auditorium, not the Auditorium Theater, hopefully one day soon. The Performing Arts Building Theater. And I've been able to start those connections. And one of the talking points that I know that we've kind of discussed in the past is how do people get involved, right, in house management. And I think the easiest way for anybody to get involved in house managing, if they want to work with ushers, if they want to work with the ticketers and the programmers, and in those kinds of leadership positions, right, is to seek out those opportunities. And honestly, they've all come from Facebook. I'll be quite blunt that the Chicago Classical Forums and some of the international and national forums, those are some of the best places to find gigs and find these opportunities. And that's actually how I was able to work with COT on Becoming Santa Claus in December. And just wonderful opportunity. Through house managing, I was able to, have a one-on-one conversation with Lydia Yankovskaya, the music director and of the Chicago Opera Theater. And those kinds of opportunities are just absolutely wonderful. And I hope to be house managing, for the future, as long as it doesn't interfere with my performing career, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. But I think it's great that you found a career path that like also kind of intertwines that. As you were saying, you get to meet lots of artists and lots of professionals
Yeah,
while pursuing becoming this professional as well. That's exciting. So then,
100%.
do you suggest for students then, if they want to get started like in the career path that you said, to just get started right in Roosevelt?
Yeah, I think that's a great, opportunity. I mean, eventually, I mean, hopefully, the position at Roosevelt doesn't open up anytime soon, as long as, they can treat me well and I treat them well,
Yeah.
which I do. I know that I'll be able to keep that position. But
Mhm.
yeah, I definitely, everybody at Roosevelt, has those teachers, and I'll be upfront that, right, Mark Creighton and Alan Glassman, even just speaking with them, right? And Susan Payne O'Brien and other
Mhm.
faculty members and coaches and teachers, just speaking to them, sometimes they'll have a theater opportunity. And yeah, the fine arts building, not the performing arts building, oof, the fine arts building theater, that is a tremendous opportunity. And I know that they hire ushers all the time.
Mhm.
So even going over there and speaking to some of the staff members is a good way to kind of put yourself out there. And if you're not looking for a house management position right away, working as an usher in a theater at the Lyric Auditorium building, or
Mhm.
any of the other smaller theaters, it's a great way to kind of get started on the administrative side. I mean, I would love to work at the Lyric on the admin side, and
Mhm.
one day, maybe in 20 years or less, who knows,
Yeah.
be actually on that stage. But yeah.
Absolutely. That's some wonderful advice. Thank you for sharing. To pivot a little bit, I also know that you work at Home Partners.
Mhm.
I was wondering if you could describe what that job is and also how your Masters of Music helped, or if it does help with that job at all.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you for asking. Yeah, so I work at Home Partners of America in the acquisitions department on the inspections team. And no, I am not an inspector, nor am I licensed to do inspections. What my role basically is I'm negotiating seller repairs and seller credits through the due diligence phase of the purchase and sales agreement process when acquiring a single family residence.
Hmm.
So at the end of the day, I'm organizing, I'm negotiating, and I'm communicating. And when I was thinking about, this dynamic and how music and my degree has kind of affected that position, some of the biggest things are, I mean, I can learn um, the information for the industry, right? And that's one of the biggest things in music is adaptability, right? And just
Yes.
picking up knowledge and acting on it, and sometimes forgetting it because you don't need it anymore because you already moved on to the next thing. But
Hmm.
just that adaptability and picking up information, that is one of the biggest things that I've learned, because you can learn all those areas, you can learn those standard operating procedures and the
Hmm.
technology, but the things that music and art and performance that have really made my growth in the company and the leadership I provided is the leadership I've gained from music, right? I mean, we are our own, I don't want to say we are our own bosses, but we're normally contracted employees, right? We're normally
Hmm.
1099s. We're not necessarily salaried employees when we're performing. So we have to kind of control our own narrative and our own path. So those leadership skills, organization, I mean, we have to go through many layers of learning an aria, right? When we're learning an aria, we're not just looking at the line, we're not just
Hmm.
looking at the melodic line and regurgitating. We're analyzing the text. We're looking
Hmm.
at the history. We're looking at the performers that originally performed the role and what they did later on in their career. We're applying all of our analytical skills, our emotional depth, and we have to organize this for every single piece. And therefore we're also project managers, right? So
Yeah.
like that's a big thing with musicians, is everything we do is a project.
Hmm.
Every performance, everything we do in school is all about project management. And then there's the enthusiasm and energy piece. I love what I do, and I love the way I do it. And people have noted my enthusiasm when coming into the office or just working with them through Teams online. And a lot of that is derived from, the passion that I have for music, the passion I have for helping people and being there for those who may be marginalized or underserved communities. And so all of these factors you don't necessarily learn from looking at a PowerPoint or working on a technological application. All of those things have come from years of practice and working on my craft and all those things. So I truly believe that art is totally encompassing of many different skills and can be applied in so many ways. So has art helped me in my negotiation with listing agents and our own real estate agents? Most definitely.
That's fantastic to hear, and I completely agree with all of the stuff you said. And I have worked. I'm currently working, at the Cal for
Right.
administrative music, but I've worked in customer service related jobs and telemarketing a little, and all of the art stuff, all of the friendly personality, all just the attention to detail, as you say, really is just from the musical background.
Yeah.
So awesome, great to clarify. And as you have mentioned, so you work the front of house, you're working the at the home partners as well. So how do you juggle those two jobs as well as pursuing your performance career?
100%. So I'll be straightforward, right? We have to make certain decisions to ensure that we are safe, right? I live with my wonderful apartment in a condo in downtown. I have two wonderful cats, and one of the biggest things is prioritizing right mental and physical health. And that's kind of an aside from the conversation of how we kind of deal with everything, but as kind of an overarching dynamic was we need to make sure that we're safe and that we're protected. So sometimes artists have to make that decision where, hey, we need a position that has health insurance and that has good health insurance, right? And so how do I juggle what I'm doing now and still focus on the path that I want to be on in 5 to 10 years? I have to intertwine music and opera and text into my everyday life. And if I don't, I will be missing out, right? So my teacher's teacher, David, he states that, we should be doing a half hour to an hour in the morning of warm-ups and a half an hour to an hour at the end of day. Now, if I'm being honest, does that happen every day? No, it doesn't. I have two jobs. But the way that I do that is focusing on being able to do that most of the time and then intertwining my tech study while I'm at work. One of the beautiful things about being in a salaried position is I get to control my workflow. I feel very independent and I also feel like a leader. And a simple solution to kind of intertwining all those factors is while I have my AirPod in, I'm listening to those arias. I'm listening to myself dictate those texts, right? So even if I'm not actively working on something subliminally, I'm hearing all of it, and I'm not regurgitating it. Everything is soaking in as I'm kind of working. And same thing with house managing, right? I take care of everything before the show, during intermission, and after the show, right? Kind of that bridging that gap between the patrons and the cast and crew. But during the show, I have time, right? And I'm there and I'm accessible. But do I have sheet music with me to study? Well, yeah, I do. I'm not just going to be sitting there not doing anything. So it's finding those opportunities where you can, I don't want to say multitasking, but you're always on. You're always thinking about, well, what aria am I working on? Oh, that Verdi text, I should probably be looking at that for the performance I have this weekend. So I like to think of it as that you don't want to get ready. And actually, I believe one of my coaches recently in the last couple of years, I think Zach Nelson, I believe Zachary is still working with the diploma program in Roosevelt. But in one of my interviews with Zach, when I was interviewing Zach during my master's work, Zach said, you have to be ready you can't get ready. And so
Mm.
when we had that conversation, I've tried to make that a part of my aesthetic and part of my goals, is that if we're always on, we don't have to work to get to where we need for an audition that's happening tomorrow. We're ready.
Mm-hmm.
So intertwining everything, and always being ready, I think is a big factor in making everything work all at once.
Awesome. That is amazing advice and something that I really appreciate because I'm a singer as well, and I try to do that as much as I can, but it's sometimes
Right.
it's hard. But it's
Right.
really great to hear that you can bring your music and you have these ideas. So while you're doing your other jobs or while you have breaks on your others, you're still regurgitating everything. So thank you for sharing that advice. Really. So I was wondering then, from your transition from your graduate studies into your professional work, I mean, you kind of touched on it, but what are some of the challenges that you faced, both in like your professional career as you're working in the house management as well as the music, and how did you kind of overcome these, or if you have overcome them yet?
Right, 100%. Yeah, that is a great question. Thank you for asking. One of the biggest things is when you're in a master's program, when you're in undergrad, even when you're in certain young artist programs, a lot is kind of laid out for you, right? You have your kind of schedule, you have your goals, you have certain assignments, you have certain projects that have deadlines. And the one thing that we don't forget this. I mean, it's always in the back of our mind, but all of that goes away, right? As soon as you graduate, all of that is gone. And that can be extremely scary, right? And so that is, I think, one of the biggest factors is overcoming that fear of not knowing what to do, but then also not getting distracted on the things that are easier to do than necessarily the craft that takes an immense amount of work. Now, I wish we all had benefactors, right? I wish that all of us singers, we could just have a benefactor and just only perform and just do any young artist program and, you know, go to England for a few months or go to Europe and work on our craft. But, you know, that is sadly not the kind of dynamic that we live in today. And so it's finding those opportunities, right, to keep going. Now, I've had some classmates that have just been doing some tremendous work. I'd say all of them, you know, have been putting their time and energy either into jobs that are ensuring that their mental and physical health are safe and steady, or they've been able to create that foundation and push forward on opportunities, right? And there's a lot of in between those two aspects. But as long as we kind of keep going with those smaller opportunities, and if you're doing a church choir instead of if you're doing a choral experience instead of necessarily being the number one person in an opera house, that's okay, right? If you're just working with your coaches and taking lessons and you're waiting for that opportunity in the summer, that's okay. But as long as you're keeping up with yourself and being honest with yourself, I think that is the best way to overcome those areas. Because we always have to remember that music and opera, it's in the long run, right? We're always thinking about the long run. There may not be short-term big breakthroughs, and that's okay, right? And that's not the goal. But as long as we keep going and kind of keep that intertwined nature of music as part of the bigger parts of your life or the smaller parts, I think that's one way to overcome it. And if you get distracted, that's okay. I took a 2-year break in the middle of my undergrad. I took a year break between my undergrad and my master's. All of those things didn't negatively affect me. If anything, they drove my passion and they drove me to where I am today. And that's not saying that going from one thing to another back to back is bad or harmful in any way. Those are powerful too. But I just think as long as you have some form of path or even just a goal and you don't know where the path is heading, that all of those factors are okay. And think about the long run. don't worry about getting that immediate feedback ASAP, because as long as your mental and physical health are okay, in the long run, I know that we can all do it.
Absolutely. Thank you. Again, your advice is amazing.
Thanks.
I love it so much.
No worries. Just let me talk. I'm trying to talk less, so I'm not occupying your time, David.
Oh my gosh,
Jeez.
no, it's great. I love it, and I especially love what your advocacy for the mental and the physical well being. I think that's something in this career that we're finally starting to see get priority, which is great.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, hopefully when we're at that age where we're directing and we're coaching and we're the leaders, that mental and physical health is a pillar of our careers.
Absolutely. Now maybe to transition a little happier things. What is the most exciting part so far about the post grad life? If there's exciting parts.
Yeah, no.
No.
I love the freedom of choice. I think that is exciting, and it can be scary for some, but I love the freedom of choice. I am very passionate about controlling the kind of tunnel that is my future. I don't know, that's a little weird way to say it, but I find extreme pleasure in being able to kind of guide where the rest of my life is going. And I know that that's kind of like a vague, like out there idea, but I find it powerful that, I'll be able to have these conversations with my coaches, just very nonchalant, and just communicate to them as people. And we work with one another to achieve a common goal. And we're all adults and we all care about each other. And those opportunities exist, but then you can also take time for yourself, right? Like I talked about earlier, sometimes you have to find a position that has good health insurance or that pays you X amount of money, so that way you can have the possibility of doing music in the future. And sometimes we're at that point, and I find all of that very thrilling. And I find overcoming those difficulties as very powerful. And I also love having a little bit more time with my cats. That's really nice. I'll say it. I love spending time with my cats and my wonderful partner and fiance. And the after graduate life, being with people around you, it's quite exciting. And I know that there's, you might not know what your next event is or your next project is. But sometimes that hunt is kind of thrilling. And I wish Yap Tracker was free, but it's not. We should be able to apply to things easily, but hey, so it goes. Some application fees are going away, which is good. But yeah, I find sometimes the open vastness of future to be exciting, and filling in those gaps is quite thrilling. And I personally set myself up well to manage, my physical and mental health. And well, I guess that's another thing is it's easier to manage your mental and physical health when there's less pressure on you. And I feel as though when you graduate, there's still an immense amount of pressure, but it might be a little bit easier to adapt depending on kind of your situation. So,
yeah, awesome. I also really like the freedom, because like in school, you also are confined to like some of the rep you have to sing, or like, know, like the recital has to have this, and this, so that's really exciting to like have that freedom to do music that you want to do. So speaking of that, as we kind of wrap this up, are you in any projects that are this year or coming up that you're excited for, or any that you would like to share with us that you know about?
Yeah, thank you for asking. So everything right now is very tentative. For most of 2021, I was healing from a pretty bad knee injury and was in physical therapy for most of the year. And that lingered into 2022, but definitely coming out of that and coming out of COVID. So it feels like, oh my God, there is just so much happening right now. Everything's opening up. Hopefully we're all making the right decision, and that, you know, society in general is moving in a good direction. But I have been looking at some opportunities for July and August. I might be able to, and this is tentative right here, and there's no commitment from the other party, but I'm looking at potentially filling a last minute spot with Chicago Summer Opera.
Ooh.
They might have a bass position open in their young artist program. And again, whoever's watching this is non-committal, and this is all just kind of happening loosely. And if it doesn't work out for whoever's watching this, that's okay. I don't mind. I will be okay. But then other than that, I am looking at some other young artist programs, still looking at some pay to sing, some unpaid, you know, hopefully getting more into those paid ones. You know, that's kind of the biggest challenge is, well, music is one of the only careers where you have pay to work, unpaid work, and paid work. And you're slowly moving from one to the other. So I honestly, there was this one, a young artist opportunity in Zagreb, Croatia, that really made me think about doing it. And the biggest reason is it was like 800 euros for the program, which is like a great deal, right? Like that, you know, we're normally talking about thousands. The only problem is it's in Croatia, so I would have to pay for that travel. But I have found some amazing international tickets that take you through Turkey, and I would love to visit Istanbul. Anyways, that is completely off topic. But so yes, there are some opportunities I'm looking at for later in the summer. Nothing is set in stone yet, but I'm actively working on that. And of course, I'm all over that Yap tracker, trying to find those opportunities. And there are some times where I have to make that decision that, you know, my job currently in its state, you know, comes first, right? I need to make sure that I maintain a good financial well-being. But what I love about my position is that there's a lot of flexibility. So if there are opportunities outside of the state, I believe that I'll be able to move forward on them. And finally, one of my biggest goals is to, you know, work with Chicago Opera Theater more. I am fairly close to Keenan Kyle's, one of the basses, working through the diploma program. And one of my goals for this year is to audition for the bass role in that diploma program. I would love to work with Chicago Opera Theater. I find their work incredible. Ever since I saw Everest Aleko in 2019 with my good friend Steven, we literally got signatures from the composer and librettist for the performance of Everest. And so I'll never forget those memories. And I would just love to continue my work with Chicago Opera Theater. I will say, last thing, because of my work with house managing with Chicago Opera Theater for Becoming Santa Claus, I was able to go see Beekeeper just because, like, you know, I knew it was happening, but Beekeeper, brand new performance. It was stunning, kind of a half reading, half performance situation. But I was in the same room as Jake Heggie. And so that was really cool. But I didn't know, I didn't see, I didn't, after the fact, I noticed that he was in pictures in the same room. I was very sad. But anyways, I know that Heggie is involved with COT and the diploma program, very much so. But that's definitely hashtag goals right there. And working on kind of getting to that place where I feel 100% ready to audition for that kind of position. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for talking to us and sharing all of your wisdom. And yeah, we greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, well, thank you, David. I really appreciate you reaching out, and I hope everything goes well with the CAL for the last remaining part of the semester. And again, thank you for reaching out. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Of course. Thank you.